This is John Younger, President, CEO, and Mojo Master for HireMojo. In a recent meeting with the team at the German Accelerator, we reviewed some of the tricks, tips, and basic strategies for recruiting people in the United States and in the very competitive environment of Silicon Valley. The impact of a bad hire is very clear. What most people don't realize is that in recent surveys, hiring managers and companies identified 40 to 50% of their current teams as poor performers. And of course, the impact of what I'll call a bad hire, someone who is not in the right seat, is significant, including losing customers, missing opportunities, and ultimately consuming enormous amounts of management time. Whereas a great hire, of course, is going to do better, but most people don't realize that one top performer will produce as much as 3 average, not low, average performers. And of course, the tangible output of a great hire is pretty significant, from taking better care of the customers, but also employee morale, makes it a better place to work, and the level of trust within organizations usually goes up dramatically. In the recent meeting, we picked a product manager job for a company expanding in the United States. And the first thing we talked about was, with any job you have, to extract the uniqueness of the job, ask 4 key questions. What's the pain? Why is the job open? And don't think in terms of duties and qualifications. What is the actual measurable result that this person will achieve in order to prove it's a top performer? What are the common attributes of the people in your company who are doing really well? It doesn't have to be in the United States, it could be anywhere. But what are the common attributes? And it's usually the attitude, how they perform their work, their level of ownership, risk-taking, communication, etc. And lastly, why would the right person want the job? It's not enough to have the job, and there's a reason that your top performers are with your company. What are they? Examples of that might include, of course, having a great product or service, but more importantly, management ability. It might even be related to things unrelated to the work itself, like ping pong, or a culture that's into gaming, or into paintball, or into something. And those are the things that ultimately are likely to get someone who's not looking for work, when they hear about the job to their friends, to be inherently interested in the job, even though they're relatively happy where they are. The next secret is to craft what we call a love letter to replace the job description. The gist of it here is, rather than write a job description which is inherently boring, for lack of a better word, write a personal note to the person you want to hire, as if they're sitting in front of you or they're on the other side of this letter. To put a fine point on this for the job developer, many job developer job descriptions describe what a Java developer does. Most Java developers know that, and the product managers, they know in general what product managers do. The real thing that needs to be answered is, why would the right person want to work with your company in any role? And specifically, if you're a product manager, you're going to be opening a new country, in this case, the United States. Well, for the right person, that's going to be extraordinarily interesting. And for someone who's either new at it or has no interest in it or maybe no talent in it, it'll be self-selecting out. Either way, you're likely to get much better people faster if you describe this in a way that's a personal letter to someone who has already opened up new markets in the United States and perhaps other countries as a product manager. Secret number 3 is, so now you've extracted the emotional triggers, you've developed this love letter and presumably some interview questions we'll talk about in a minute. Now I want to introduce the concept of filter bubbles. A filter bubble is basically how Google and so many other resources around us base what they present to us on what we looked at previously. As this relates to hiring, you're likely only to see communities of people that are in your LinkedIn network, for example, where the people you might want aren't in your LinkedIn network, don't go to the same places you go to, aren't in the same circles, and certainly aren't in the same country if you're coming to the United States new. So how do you pierce the filter bubbles? One really key way of doing this in the bottom of your love letter is to put keywords, related keywords. The more clever they are, as well as comprehensive, the more effective they will likely be. So in this case, this company is into Star Trek. It's just something they're into, all the way from the CEO to the entry-level people. There's just quirky about it. And so in this, they actually wove in keywords related to Star Trek. Had nothing to do with the job, had everything to do with the culture. Now, once you have that, now it's about promoting it high and low and deep and broad. Many companies, especially in Silicon Valley, and some of the worst offenders of this are recruiters themselves, where they will post the job only on, say, LinkedIn. Or worse yet, they will try to convince the management team that the only way they're going to find the right person if this person manually goes and hunts them down. Now, that may still be required, but in the vein of getting the message delivered and getting through these filter bubbles, what we found quantitatively is that the broader and the deeper the outreach, the higher the likelihood of finding a person faster. What does that translate to in real terms? That means using resources like job boards. So LinkedIn is a great resource, but what about Indeed? And Indeed sponsored Monster, Career Builder, Craigslist. Here's a weird factoid I would have never expected. In the San Francisco Bay Area, somewhere in the neighborhood of 22% of hires can be actually found directly or indirectly through networks with postings on Craigslist. That's crazy. No one would think of Craigslist to find your hardcore Java developer or your product manager. But quantitatively, if you don't put it there, you're going to miss about 22% of the applicants. Case in point, we had a job for a very senior level person, and they heard about the job through their neighbor, personal referral. Their neighbor heard about the job through Monster. Because of those keywords, it triggered this neighbor's agent, this technology agent on the Monster site, and it went to them. And when they read the love letter, because it was compelling and clear, they recognized it wasn't for them, but it was for their neighbor. In the end, this particular CIO was introduced to the executive team in 4 days, the one they actually hired. Does it always happen that quickly? No. But best practice dictates get a broader footprint. So when your job goes live, make sure you get it out to your own team. Now, in this case, with companies based in Germany and looking for roles in the United States, don't assume that your employees in Germany or Switzerland or India won't have connections to other people in the United States. They might. So get it to the right populations of employees and have them push it out to their networks. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Push it out to the social networks, the job boards, etc., and get it aggressively promoted. Secret number 5, look for talent, not skills. So in the case of this product manager, what often happens is someone will say, I need someone with 8 years of experience. And that's skills. And I have no idea what the difference is between 8 years of experience and 10 years of experience in anything. However, there are some product managers that have been doing it for 5 years who are extraordinary. There's others who've been doing it for 12 who are awful. So how do you look for talent? And talent is asking questions that distill out the talent itself. So for example, for the product manager, look for someone who has opened up at least one country. If they haven't, that doesn't mean you won't hire them, but it means they're less interesting than someone who's opened, say, 3 countries as a product manager for a software company. And now, to the extent that you have a framework where you can ask the question, have it rated and scored, which is part of what HireMojo does, the better, but you don't need that. The key is look for the skill. Secret number 6, the world is becoming increasingly transparent. And here's a guy you look at and go, there's no way I would ever hire this guy for my product manager role. But this was taken by someone that he knew at a party, it got posted on Facebook, and you look at this and go, no way. When in fact, he's going to be your rock star product manager. So as the world gets more transparent, understand that there is likely to be more compromising information out there about people. It may still preclude you from hiring someone, but the lesson we've learned is look at the talent. Look at the talent itself. And in this case, I'd be asking, what's going on there? He said, oh, I'm so embarrassed. My friend posted that. And a lot of assumptions people bring to bear may be false. Now, let me switch gears and talk about interviewing. Because as you now have written, you've extracted emotional triggers, you've written a love letter, you've developed these keywords, you've promoted it broadly and deeply within your own community, within outside communities. You have people applying, you're distilling out those with the talent through, could be a half dozen to 12 questions, and now you're interviewing someone. It's really essential that you use some strategies that will help distill out this person's talent faster. So the typical dynamic when someone is being interviewed as the candidate is they're happy to talk about the world and the company, the department, and even the team. And here's what my team did on product development. Yeah, our team opened this, the United States market, but you're not hiring the team, the company, or the department. You're hiring an I. So the dynamic in most interviews is the candidate will try to pull away from I a little bit, because that's a really bright light on what they can and can't do. And you as the interviewer need to push it back in that eye and do it gently and tactfully. But as you do this, you'll find that you can get far more valuable data in a fraction of the time. An example of that is when someone talks about, I was a product manager, my team, and then right out of the gate, ask them, well, what specifically did you do? And if they stay at the team or department level, say, I recognize that, and I've even said this to candidates, that's great, you're part of the team, but we're not hiring the team, we're looking at hiring you. So I need to know specifically what you did. So we check references, we can verify it and we get a good sense of fit here. And if you do that on the first question or second question, the entire interview will go faster. And the reason is that they're going to recognize that the responses that don't relate to I, you're going to keep drilling down, and pretty soon what you'll find is they'll just say, okay, here's what I did, and here's what I didn't do, and they recognize that you're going to keep writing that anyway. Also, as you interview, seek contrary evidence. And what I mean by that is someone really impresses you as being a highly effective communicator, for example. Then ask the contrary evidence question. Give me an example of when you weren't an effective communicator. Give me an example when you had an issue communicating a concept or something to a prospect client or company group in the company. Conversely, if you are interviewing someone and your thought is this person is simply not going to have the detail orientation we need to get this done. So that's the assumption. The contrary evidence question is, give me an example that demonstrates your detail orientation. What I've found consistently is that probably 40 to 50% of the people that I've made an assumption on have proven to be far stronger or weaker when the contrary evidence was a point of focus. And lastly, when you have someone in front of you and you want to hire them, make sure you make it a conversation before you commit to writing. And the reason for that is that once an offer is committed to writing, it becomes this weirdly formal process. And it doesn't mean you won't commit to writing at all. It just means that have the conversation and make it more human, if you will. So one of the things that I ask people is, so if we look like this, what about compensation? And I get to the point where I said, look, if we put together an offer that looks like this, would you accept it? And if they say, I'm not sure. So well, let's talk about that. What aren't you sure about? Well, I need to study the benefits package. Great, I'll send the benefits package to you. And I even tell people that I'm talking to, the candidates, it's like, I want to commit this to writing once you and I have alignment, just to memorialize what we've agreed on, as opposed to make it this formal back and forth written process. About HireMojo. So HireMojo is a hiring automation platform. And it actually includes, in the United States, all paid, or almost all paid and non-paid and user groups and professional organizations and our own proprietary direct sourcing. We buy all these things in bulk from LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we include it in the job marketing. And we do this because our mission is to make hires happen rather than just sell software. And so we also have tens of thousands of jobs we filled, and users, subscribers can then get access to all those so they can see what other love letters work best. They can use them, they can use the questions. We have patents on how the scoring works. Ultimately, you press a button for launch, and it goes really aggressively into lots of places. And in a simple portal with 3 screens, you can see the jobs, the people, the jobs, the individuals. And with that, you simply express decisions, and the follow-up, closure, tracking, scheduling happens in the platform. Our mission is to make it easier to hire than any other possible way. Thank you, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.